Hi, welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon. So before we get started, a quick favor. If you value the work we do here at Vanished Voices, please take a moment to rate and review the show. It does make a real difference. On Apple Podcasts, just scroll down on our show page and tap the stars or write a quick review. On Spotify, hit the star at the top of the app. It only takes a second. If you're listening on Audible, scroll down and tap write a review right under the episode list. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and tap the bell icon so you don't miss new episodes. Your support helps us reach more listeners, and it helps amplify the voices of those whose stories might otherwise stay buried.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Now, before we begin, I want to note that this episode contains discussion of domestic violence and intimate partner harm. If these topics are difficult or personal for you, please listen with care or skip this episode. Maybe come back when you're ready. We completely understand. On a warm summer night in 2018, 23-year-old Jermain Charlo stepped out into the neon-lit streets of downtown Missoula, Montana, and vanished without a trace. Jermain was a young Indigenous mother of two, a citizen of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. She had been enjoying a Friday night out on June 15, 2018. She was captured in grainy security footage walking down an alley near the Badlander bar with a familiar figure a few paces behind her. Moments later, Jermain and a man beside her rounded a corner and disappeared into the darkness. The last known sighting of a woman whose absence would soon spark frantic searches, a years-long investigation, and a rallying cry in Montana's missing and murdered Indigenous persons movement.
So right away, you said familiar figure. Does that mean somebody who was familiar to her?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
not somebody that people were shocked to see her with.
No.
Okay.
Maybe they wish she weren't with him.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But
Known to her.
yes. Those who knew Jermain describe her as vibrant and social. It was immediately alarming when calls and messages to her phone went unanswered the next day. She was very active on social media. She posted about everything, Jermain's aunt, Badlander, recalled in an interview with 48 Hours. So for her to not be active on social, then I knew something was not right. Jermain's sudden silence set off alarm bells within her close-knit family. By June 16th and 17th, loved ones were desperately trying to reach her. When they couldn't, they contacted authorities and began organizing searches on their own. And now, over 7 years later, Jermain is still missing. No arrests have been made, and officially, no suspects have been named in her disappearance. Yet, her case remains very much active, and those who love her have never stopped fighting for answers. This is the story of Jermain's life, the night she vanished, and the quest for justice that followed. It's the story of a young Indigenous mother caught in a nightmare of domestic violence and an epidemic of missing Indigenous women, a story that Montana and America can no longer afford to ignore. Now, to understand what might have happened to Jermain, we need to get into her history with the man who was last seen with her that night, Mike DeFrance. Jermain met Michael as a teenager living in Dixon, which is a small community on the Flathead Reservation in western Montana. This reservation is huge. It's 1.3 million acres. It's home to 28,000 residents. Only about 5,000 of them are part of the Indigenous tribe that lives there.
Okay.
That tribe has about 7,800 enrolled members nationwide. But like I said, about 5,000 live there, which when we get more into it, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, that's a lot of acres.
It's a lot of acres. Also, we talk about the jurisdictional issues between being on reservation and off reservation.
Mm-hmm.
But here it feels a little bit more messy because so many of the residents on the reservation aren't Indigenous. So we have both types of law enforcement in the area.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think you could be on reservation unless you were Native.
Apparently, way back in the day, they sold off a lot of their land to private residents, which has passed down through the years. And as they've gotten that land put back in the tribal name and the tribal community, those people still own their
own
private
the
land.
house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't really run into that in my research before.
I guess it makes sense. It's almost like you're leasing the land from, so I wonder if they own the land or just the house on top of it. Or maybe it's just a way to...
I wonder that too.
Yeah.
The way that it was described in the different places that I tried to learn more about this, I didn't really differentiate that.
No, and I probably wouldn't, because if it's native land, natives are free to do with it as they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if one community chose to sell to non-natives as a way to fund their tribe.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of it, they didn't choose to sell.
Oh.
It was given in parcels back in the late 1800s.
So almost like a treaty that wasn't honored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then never mind.
But I think when you have a community of 28,000, which is still fairly small, you need those people.
They're contributing to taxes and...
Yeah, schools and jobs, things like that too. Back to Jermain. In 2010, she was about 14. She was born in 1995. She was a freshman in high school, and that's when Michael's family moved to Dixon. He was a couple of years older, 16 or 17 at the time, and the two began dating.
Is he Native?
No, he's not, but it's a little bit difficult to tell in the reporting.
Okay.
By the time Jermain was in her late teens, their relationship had grown serious. She eventually had 2 sons with Michael, becoming a young mother while barely out of childhood herself. Alongside the births of her children, court records and family accounts reveal a pattern of abuse and violence that continued to mar Jermain and Michael's relationship throughout. In April 2013, when Jermain was about 18, Michael was arrested for assaulting her. He ultimately pled guilty to misdemeanor partner or family member assault, which is PFMA, which we'll mention a few more times. He admitted to police that during an argument, he struck Jermain once with an open hand and twice with a closed fist. Jermain told officers that Michael had shoved her onto the hood of a vehicle, punched her in the ear, temple, and cheekbone, and then spat in her face and called her horrible names. Unfortunately, this was not an isolated incident. In fact, that 2013 conviction was Michael's second domestic violence offense. An earlier case, possibly involving Jermain as well, had occurred when he was a minor and remains sealed. In this case, Michael was ordered to pay a fine, spend just one day in jail, forfeit firearms for a year, and complete 40 hours of a domestic violence treatment program. Over the next few years, the violence continued. In the summer of 2014, when Jermain was 8 months pregnant with their first child, Michael allegedly assaulted Jermain's aunt, Belinda, during a dispute. She had tried to intervene when she saw how Jermain was being treated, and Michael allegedly attacked her for this. She says Michael grabbed her, threw her to the ground, and landed on top of her. He was arrested, but it is unclear in reporting if he was ever charged or convicted in this attack. That same year, in November, police were called to Jermain's home in Dixon, Montana. Jermain told them that they had had an argument. During the argument, Jermain told police that Michael took her phone, dropped it in water, and broke it. There's other reporting that says that he threw it to the ground and smashed it. I'm not sure why the difference, or if there were multiple times that he had broken her phone.
It's pretty bold to also attack the aunt.
Yes.
That's not something you see or hear about very often. And the fact that usually, I know battered women, it takes 7 attempts before they officially leave. But I feel like usually when they see it turn outward to somebody else, like their children, them, they don't, but when it's other, then that prompts them to make a decision. So that's interesting.
I believe with that one, I mean, she was 8 months pregnant.
Oh, no.
And so
yeah, definitely in a vulnerable spot.
Right. With the phone incident, it's important because an arrest can be made as a partner or family member assault if the police decide the offender has damaged someone's phone as they are trying to call for help. But in this case, police decided that it's a civil matter and they make no arrests.
Seriously?
Out of the 3 times in that year that police are called, only one time has it resulted in anything happening.
Who was it? Jermain herself calling the police? Okay.
By 2017, things have continued to escalate, and Jermain shares some of the abuse on Facebook. It sounds like Jermain has been trying to find a way out of the relationship, but Michael continues to threaten her, saying that he will make sure she loses her children if she leaves him. She shares an incident where he threw her up against a pull-up bar and choked her for refusing to kiss him. And later that month, she posts that Michael threatened to find their kids a new mom.
See, that's troubling. She's clearly asking for help.
She is. I feel like she's posting because she feels so trapped. Her kids are really young at this point. The first one was born in 2014.
Oh, so right away when they first met.
Well, they met in 2010.
Okay, but still.
But yes, and she's still so young because she didn't turn 20 until 2015. On May 30th, 2017, so both of her posts were earlier in the month in May. And then on May 30th, Michael was arrested yet again after a terrifying incident. He was accused of pushing Jermain out of a moving vehicle along Interstate 90 near Butte, which is about 160 miles away from Dixon, where their home is, or about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Jermain and Michael had gone to a Def Leppard concert in Bozeman, about 245 miles or 3.5 hours away from Dixon that evening. On the way home, Jermain tells police that Michael pushed her out of the moving vehicle. She posts on Facebook asking her friends to please contact her dad or brother to pick her up from the police station. I'm not sure why she wasn't calling or texting.
Or she logged into a police computer to maybe her phone isn't working.
Yeah, because I could see it being destroyed in that type of incident.
I mean, and how fast were they going when he pushed her out? That's crazy.
It's a major interstate. I imagine fast.
Which is also crazy because how are you driving, opening a car door and pushing another human out that I would think would be strapped in a seat? I don't know. That's, I mean, that's just danger all the way around because you're really hurting yourself too.
It's really scary. Michael is charged with a PFMA second offense, even though really this should be his third on record because of the sealed charge, or more because police haven't charged him multiple times to date. However, I hate this. This specific incident is later dismissed. I
wonder if it's because she didn't press charges. Like if she's not a willing participant, a lot of times charges get dropped. And it's because it's scary to actually charge them because you assume they're going to escalate. And I can definitely, I mean, there's escalation happening. I can imagine not wanting to make things worse.
Absolutely. I also see later on, so after this happened and he was initially arrested, Jermain made it back to town and tried to pick up her children. Michael's parents had been watching them while they went to the concert, and they refused to give them to her.
Which is illegal.
Right. And so part of me wonders if he was using that, like you'll never see your kids again.
Yes.
If you make this charge stick.
She, at 20, or I don't even know how old she is at this point, but that 22. Young, you don't really, again, you have now elders telling you we're not going to give you your kids. You're going to believe them. So not realizing that, no, they can't Even though they're grandparents, they have no right to your children and they can't hold them.
Yeah. Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist and podcast host Connie Walker, who hosts the Stolen podcast, she did an 8-part series on Jermain's case.
Oh,
it's
okay.
very well done. Highly recommend it. She was actually there on the ground. She was speaking with family members. And one thing that they told her was that Michael's controlling behavior was pervasive. They said he grew jealous easily. He kept tabs on all of Jermain's activities and even had a history of destroying her devices to isolate her.
Okay, so then it very much seems plausible that he destroyed her phone during the pushing out of the car incident.
And more than once, because her grandmother had mentioned a time where Michael had seized Jermain's phone and smashed it. And again, the reporting's a little bit unclear on if that was the same incident we talked about.
Okay.
That also said throwing it in water. Jermain's grandmother, Vicky, said that it was not out of character at all for Michael to have destroyed her devices. She said Michael often complained that Jermain, quote, paid too much attention to her phone instead of him.
I feel like that's a normal excuse from somebody who's abusive.
Yep. It's jealous, possessive behavior. And Walker notes that this type of behavior could be pulled from a textbook about domestic violence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. By 2017, Jermain was trying to break free from the turbulent relationship for good, a process that, like Shannon mentioned, advocates warn can be the most dangerous time for an abuse victim. Statistics bear this out. About 75% of domestic violence-related homicides occur around the time of separation, usually within the first 18 months after a relationship ends.
Okay, I didn't realize it could actually go on for that long. Like I knew leaving was really the most dangerous, but I didn't realize even 18 months later can still be considered in that time frame.
I thought it was a smaller window too.
Yeah.
And I would bet a lot of that 75% is right around then.
Yeah. Well, then again, I can see it because then you have them turn into stalkers and that tends to escalate when they're not letting go.
Right. Which it does feel like happened here because the night that we're going to talk about was 13 months later. So June of 2018.
Okay.
And this is all happening in May of 2017 and then through the summer and fall. Jermain did not completely sever ties with Michael after any of these incidents. Her family says that they believe like her going with him to the concert was a calculated move. Remember that Jermain and Michael shared 2 young boys, and actually by late 2017, Michael is granted residential custody of the children.
Okay, what does that mean?
They live with him. So it's kind of like a parental custody agreement, but I believe because they're not getting divorced, they're just going to live in separate places, possibly. Because it sounds like a custody agreement. Jermain had the kids Monday through Wednesday and every other weekend, and they were with Michael all the rest of the time.
Oh.
Yeah. She was also ordered to pay $800 a month in child support, which by all accounts is a huge dollar amount.
Yeah. Did he have a lawyer? Because this is very, especially when they're this young, seems very not equal.
No, especially with his
history.
Record and history.
Yeah. How is that? That is very interesting.
When this was decided, Jermain had no legal representation and Michael did.
And even then, it is family court. I don't think they give you public defenders in that scenario.
So unfortunate.
You're usually still pro per, but usually the courthouse has, that is just very, I don't know.
And I can't figure out the reasoning unless it's the things he's saying about
Monday
her.
through Wednesday, that's still a fairly decent physical custody schedule, but the fact that she was the one ordered to pay the child support.
Right, because then he's got them Wednesday through Friday and every other weekend. It feels pretty
Even. So yeah,
on
how
the
is there
days.
even... That is very strange.
Yeah. And I mean, she didn't have a high-paying job.
No, but I can't imagine he did either.
Right. But also when you got them for equal amounts of time.
Okay, and all his charges to date have either been dropped or they're misdemeanor still, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's really nothing preventing him from achieving gainful employment.
Right.
At this point.
Yes. Jermain's family feels that she felt she had to keep the peace with him in order to remain in her son's lives. And I can imagine that he was constantly threatening her with taking her back to court.
You're still... Okay, right now he hasn't, quote unquote, hurt the children. And you still, I get it. You want that relationship with this, so the kids know their dad.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't fault her in it at all to try to be cordial and maintain some sense of normalcy for the kids.
And I'm sure she's just hoping if we spend more and more time apart, he'll meet someone else, he'll move on, I can move on.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep things amicable.
Co-parent and then everything will be better.
Yep. Just weeks after the custody settlement, Jermain was at her parents' house. Her grandma was there and she was covered in bruises. So this is late fall 2017. This wasn't reported to authorities. And at first she said she fell down the stairs, but then she confided in her mom, Jen, that the bruises came from Michael. In late 2017, I believe it was the beginning of December, Jermain was admitted to the hospital following a suicide attempt. She tells a close friend about this and that the reason is the abuse from Michael. Michael, for his part, not ready to let Jermain go, but he had started dating a new girlfriend in 2017, a woman named Cheyenne. Even Cheyenne noticed Michael's obsession with his ex. In 2023, she talked to Connie Walker and said that she ultimately broke up with Michael weeks before Jermain went missing because, quote, all he seemed to care about was what Jermain was doing, where she was at, and who she was with. Michael's fixation on Jermain's life remained intense. There was a post from Jermain in December of 2017 congratulating Michael on his engagement to Cheyenne, which I imagine was a huge relief to Jermain if she doesn't realize how obsessed he still is and thinks that he's found someone
new to focus on, right, and not worry about what she's doing.
Yeah. Jermain is now 23 years old. She was moving on, but trying to do it quietly. She started a new job as a bartender at Big River Cantina, which is a bustling local bar in Dixon. She had also begun dating someone new, a man named Jacob, and seemed determined to keep this new relationship private, especially from Michael. In the spring of 2018, Jermain had been regularly traveling from her home on the Flathead Reservation to the city of Missoula. She would say it was to visit friends, but in reality, it was often to see Jacob, who lived there. She tried really hard not to advertise this to Michael, likely out of concern for those jealous tendencies that she knew existed. Indeed, by all accounts, tension was brewing. Michael was pressing Jermain with questions, asking if she was seeing anyone, suggesting he wanted to rekindle their relationship, which, remember, he has a girlfriend or is engaged at this time. Jermain would try to deflect his questions, but the stage was set for some type of blow-up situation. 1 week before Jermain went missing, she made her final Facebook post. On June 9th, she changed her relationship status to in a relationship.
Wait, was that the final post? Was the change of status? Oh, no.
Yeah. She didn't put with who, possibly out of fear of Michael. On June 14th, Jermain attended a monster truck rally with Michael. I'm guessing for the boys, they're probably at the perfect age at that point. After this, she asked to be dropped off at the Orange Street Food Farm. This is close to where her boyfriend lived, but not in front of his apartment or anything. She did make it to his apartment that night and told him that Michael had been screaming at her before he dropped her off, asking if she had a boyfriend and telling her that he wants to be in a relationship with her. So by this point, his girlfriend has broken up with him.
Yeah.
Jermain tells Jacob that she's been keeping this relationship a secret from Michael. My guess is he's most likely blocked on her Facebook, but they still have ways of finding that.
Oh, yeah. You just either create a fake account or use your friends who she's friends with.
Right.
It's not hard.
So I'm certain that he saw it.
And yeah, 2018 fake accounts were real easy to make back then.
You don't have to prove that you are an actual human.
Right. You just made an account.
Yeah. On Friday, June 15th, 2018, it was supposed to be a fun night out in Missoula. Jermain had traveled into the city from the reservation that day. She met up with friends. They went to a couple bars before ending up at the Badlander, which was a popular downtown bar and music venue. Unbeknownst to most of her family, she also planned to meet Michael that evening. Despite everything that had happened between them, the two had apparently agreed to spend time together that night. Possibly part of Jermain's strategy to try to keep things cordial, maybe because Michael insisted too strongly. Investigators later learned that Jermain and Michael, quote, had plans together that night, though it's unclear exactly what was discussed or why they met up. What is clear is that around midnight, the two were captured together on surveillance cameras in the alley behind the Badlander. In the first surveillance...
So that alley, is that where they go to get to the parking lot? Or like, why were they in an alley behind the bar?
I can't tell if that was walking, like you said, to the car.
Because I have been to places where you enter through the back.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I believe that they were walking to the car based on the rest of the timeline, but there wasn't any other CCTV beyond this alleyway. So this is all they have. Like I said, just before midnight, you can see Jermain walking along a sidewalk near the bar with a man trailing a few steps behind her. In a second clip, Jermain stands outside the Badlander in a small group socializing. Michael is visibly hovering just over her shoulder. The two, when you look at the CCTV footage, appear to be together. Witnesses say that Jermain was playing pool, dancing, and having fun at the Badlander. The bartender, when he's later interviewed, describes Jermain as being more interested in her phone, while Michael seems more interested in talking to Jermain or being chatty. The bartender also said that he didn't feel that either Jermain or Michael were intoxicated. Jermain is a lot more social on the video where they're in front of the bar, going back and forth between groups of people, talking to several people, while it seems like Michael is less social. Not
like we did another case, kind of like the same scenario where the man hung back and was less social than the girl. And that was part of the jealousy issues. They were a little too social. Or maybe I'm just imagining that. I don't know. It feels like we've had that one before. Like another similar scenario.
Yeah. I can't place it though.
No, I can't either.
It will come to me. You'll hear from me at 2 a.m. According to Detective Guy Baker of the Missoula Police, who carefully reviewed the footage, these are the last known images of Jermain Charlo before she vanished. At 11:59 p.m., Jermain and Michael left the alleyway and headed off into the night out of the camera's view. So maybe somebody saw something that night.
Were they
after
able to identify all the people that they were talking to outside of the bar?
They still have a plea for witnesses to come forward.
Okay, because I'm like, I have to assume that those people would know.
And like
what the plans were. Like, were they hanging out that night together? Were they leaving together? Was he really just dropping her off?
Right. Well, according to him, he gives her a ride right after this.
Yeah, which is what you would assume.
So if they're both headed back to Dixon.
And Dixon's an hour and a half away?
That was from Butte. It's closer to Missoula.
Oh, okay.
I want to say more like 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where she worked and
Right.
spent a lot of time in where her
Yeah.
boyfriend
In
lived.
30 minutes,
Yeah.
that's like,
Yep.
that's just going a normal spot in Phoenix.
Totally.
Like 30 minutes.
Can't go anywhere closer.
Right. No, that's just from traffic. So yeah, 30 minutes, not a big deal.
Right. I'm not entirely sure.
Did she live with family or did she have her own place?
She lived with family.
Okay. So.
But she would sometimes spend the night because her boyfriend's apartment was pretty close.
I find it hard to believe when you're that concerned with his jealousy to do the whole, hey, drop me off at this grocery store and I'm going to spend the night at a girl's house versus let me just go home. If you've already agreed to hang out with your ex for whatever reason to keep the peace, I would think you would be going home just so that there's not any question about if you know what his triggers are and you're trying to avoid those triggers. I mean, who knows? Maybe because she'd done it more than once that she thought he would buy it yet again. I guess we'll never know. But I feel like she would have been going home just, again, to keep up appearances
and maybe
for him to keep everything copacetic.
And maybe she didn't want to do that drive with him. Maybe I get the feeling that she had gotten there a different way.
Oh, so maybe in reality,
day.
He's supposed to be taking her back to her car.
I don't know. She's planning to spend the night at her boyfriend's house, who lives right there, but is out of town. He had given her permission to spend the night in his place.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she went to Missoula with a friend earlier in the day
she doesn't have a vehicle
first. I get the feeling that she didn't have a vehicle.
Oh, so then this is where she worked, right? So I wonder how she was always getting to work.
She might have had a vehicle. I don't think it was in Missoula that day.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't believe she would have gotten a ride from him at all anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is
I know. I'm like,
a hard thing.
This, because I'm like, if he's already suspicious, I would think, of course, if you're going back to the boyfriend's empty house, it probably feels safer in your mind. Because again, you can continue playing off that it's a girlfriend and not a boyfriend.
Right.
Ugh.
And all of that comes from Michael. So we don't know what she asked for.
Right. Or what her true plans were.
Right. I guess I take that back because Jacob did later tell investigators that he knew she was planning to spend the night at his apartment.
And he knew she was hanging out with Michael that night?
That I'm not sure on.
And yeah, I'm curious to know how he felt.
And he might have understood that she needed occasionally.
I wonder, I do wonder how much he knew about the violence.
Yeah, me too.
And do we know how old he is?
That I don't think I have. There's not a lot about him.
Well, yeah, if this is the night she went missing and he's out of town, I'm sure he was cleared.
Yeah.
Pretty much immediately.
Michael's story that he would later tell police is that after they left the bar, him and Jermain, the two of them went to his pickup truck and he gave her a ride. Initially, he claimed he dropped Jermain off around 1 a.m. at a downtown grocery store. This is my other question.
The same one that he had dropped her off at before, so familiar.
The day before.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, your alibi is a little bit shaky.
Right.
If it is indeed an alibi.
Right.
Yeah. It's only 5 minutes from the bar.
So she easily could have walked.
Yes. Also, how do we go from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m.?
Good point.
Because they were last
that's
seen
right.
at
The midnight was the camera. Yeah, that's true. So a 5-minute drive, but it takes an hour.
Yeah, even your alibi is sus.
Not great.
Michael said that Jermain had told them she planned to meet a friend named Cassidy and stay with that friend for the night.
Is there a girl named Cassidy?
Not that police could ever find.
Okay.
When Jermain's worried family questioned Michael later in the weekend, he gave a slightly different account of what happened. He still insisted he let Jermain out of his truck around 1 a.m. Again, what happened in that hour? But not at the grocery store itself. Instead, he said he dropped her off at a residential area a few blocks away, supposedly because this, quote, friend Cassidy lived nearby.
I wonder if he's actually figured out about Jacob.
Very possible. If they are running in the same circles at all, I believe.
Yeah.
Detectives found these shifting stories odd. Why the minor change in location? And of course, who was Cassidy? Despite extensive interviews and outreach, no one by that name has been found. Jermain's family also was baffled. None of them had ever heard Jermain mention a friend named Cassidy. Detectives believe Cassidy doesn't exist. And they did learn later, like we said, Jermain's real plan for that night was to stay at the apartment of Jacob, who lived right by that food farm and also the bar. Yeah. And it's easy to assume that Jermain said a made up name because she didn't want Michael to know about Jacob.
That's also the icky part. Like, even if she did really say just a random name, a female name, the fact that when, say, he really did drop her, if it's a female, you're going to let him drive you all the way to the house. You know, that's the part that, like, I get it. I get the thought behind the plan. Or you say he agreed to it, but then he follows her. Because, I mean, we clearly know he's doing some level of stalking.
Yeah. And
when his
he could have
fiance literally calls off the engagement because it's clear he's obsessed with the ex.
Yeah, he easily could have followed her the night before when he dropped her off.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. And maybe then he actually saw the guy.
Possibly.
I keep forgetting this is literally only 24 hours later.
I know, right? It's a really tight time frame. Sometime shortly after 1 a.m. on June 16th, Jermain vanished. And I personally would, that's what all the reporting says, I would say after midnight because we really don't know what happened in that hour. And why would we go off of just Michael's account? It is clear that she never showed up at Jacob's apartment. He grew concerned when he couldn't reach her. He told police that around 12:55 a.m., he tried calling Jermain's cell phone.
Did he give her a key? Or how was she planning to get in if he wasn't home?
I believe he gave her a key.
Okay.
He tried calling Jermain's cell phone, but she never answered. Now, he said the call rang several times and then went to voicemail. Jacob said it felt like when it rings and someone sends you to voicemail.
Oh.
After a couple rings.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it went all the way through. And then also it did ring.
Like the 4 rings and then the 5th ring is the voicemail. Okay.
He said he knew the phone wasn't off or out of service because it did ring. Jacob would later tell investigators what Jermain had shared with him the day before, Michael yelling at her, asking if she was dating anyone, saying how much he wanted to get back together with her. That's where investigators learned about what happened the day before Jermain went missing. And that's a real confrontational mood that Michael's in.
Well, yeah.
Right before going out with Jermain that night. According to Michael's account, after he dropped Jermain off near the food farm grocery or the residential area, he simply drove away, and that was the last time he saw her. At that time, no one could verify or refute his story. There were no security cameras in the quiet residential block. No witnesses came forward to report seeing Jermain on the street. All that's known is that Jermain never made it to Jacob's apartment. Somewhere in that time frame, Jermain Charlo disappeared. When she failed to return home or contact her family the next day, panic set in. As noted, she did enjoy posting on social media. There was nothing posted. Her relatives knew that was highly uncharacteristic. By June 17th, Jermain's mother and aunts were calling the authorities to report her missing. The process had some frustrating snags that are all too common in cases of Indigenous people who go missing off reservation. Jermain was a tribal member who grew up in Dixon on the Flathead Indian Reservation, but she had gone missing in the city of Missoula, which is outside of tribal jurisdiction. So her family first notified the tribal police on the reservation on June 17th. Tribal officers took the concern seriously and began communicating with local law enforcement. But when the family tried to file a missing person report with the Missoula police, which they were told they needed to do, They were told by the city that the report had to be made in person at the station, not allowed over the phone.
I wonder why.
I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense because what if you lived there, but your whole family was in California or Texas or anywhere?
Seems like a very deterring piece of red tape, which feels
intentional.
Exactly. I was say on purpose.
Mm-hmm. It took 3 days, but on June 20th, her Aunt Belinda was able to drive to Missoula to formally file the missing persons report. By that time, now we've had 3-4 days that have passed.
Yeah.
But
and we're talking about witnesses. I mean, it's leaving a bar. So people are intoxicated.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the memory isn't going to be quite as fresh.
Absolutely. Also, things can get deleted. CCTV can be recorded over on a pretty frequent
because there's no,
Yeah. And of course, we know the first 48 to 72 hours in a missing person case is the most critical for those reasons to gather evidence and leads. By the time her family got there, the detective that was assigned to her case was leaving on vacation on the 21st.
Wait, what?
Yep. And I'm going to say this, he has done a great job on her case. He seems very dedicated and invested in finding her.
Yeah.
He has put in a lot. And even Connie Walker, when she went to go through and really dig into this, he went with her and took her to different places, explained it.
Yeah.
And she is also Indigenous and said she was really impressed by him.
Oh, Connie Walker is?
Okay. And so
I know that they go in a rotation.
Yeah.
It just seems like if you have a vacation coming up, they wouldn't assign it to you. But I guess maybe there's not really an option there.
It's unfortunate because also if that had been on the 17th, he maybe could have spent a few days on it.
Right.
Or assigned it out to someone else before leaving.
Right.
Instead of it just sitting.
Yeah.
It took until June 26th, 10 days after Jermain disappeared, before anything was really done on a law enforcement scale. Jermain's family, of course, felt the lack of urgency and sprang into action on their own. In late June 2018, volunteers fanned out across Missoula and the surrounding areas to search for any sign.
Now, did they hit she's just out partying?
It doesn't seem like it.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, both from tribal police and Missoula. It's just they made them come do it in person.
Yeah.
Which was not easy for her family.
Right.
Belinda contacted a local nonprofit called the Lifeguard Group, which specializes in search and rescue and also anti-trafficking efforts to help organize community searches. The response was swift and compassionate. Dozens of volunteers showed up to comb riverbanks, alleys, fields, both in the city and outside of the city. One photo from one of these searches shows lines of people sweeping through tall grass and brush, a testament to the community's willingness to help. Lowell Hochhalter, co-founder of the Lifeguard Group, reassured Jermain's family that they would not give up. He told the family that they were not going to stop no matter what, and that they will continue to search for Jermain as if she's alive until they find her.
Or is she classified as missing right now? Well, I should say when they first started.
Missing.
Okay, so they did not immediately jump to homicide. Okay.
No. The early searches did not locate Jermain, but also they didn't locate any obvious evidence to point to what happened. Over the following weeks, posters with...
Was Michael helping in the search?
Oh, I don't believe so.
That's telling.
Mm-hmm. He was a long-haul trucker.
Michael?
Left pretty shortly after this.
For his job.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So then who was taking care of his kids?
His parents.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think that's very fair or right.
No, even more so. You're long haul, yet somehow you get half custody when your job has you out. So yes, I understand you found care, aka their grandparents, but still, like you would think with that being your job, that more time would have been provided to, and I say this because I was married to, not long haul, but still a truck driver. And our parenting plan was very fluid in that, one, I retained more physical custody, but he would get 2 days off a week, which would switch every month. And so we wrote the parenting plan that it was just his days off, he would get the kids. And that way it could accommodate whether he was Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or whatever his days off were that month, which then would switch each month.
Interesting.
Yeah, because even the judge questioned it. And when I explained why, she was like, oh, okay. And
Nice.
then we moved on. But I was like, no, it's specifically written vague for his benefit because we can't guarantee what his schedule is going to be. But it's just we accommodate his 2 days off a week.
Yeah.
And so
that makes it feel like Michael's parents in this story are very...
I feel like they're the ones that really want the custody.
Exactly.
Not Michael.
Right.
He's using them as a form of control.
That bargaining chip. Yeah. And control is more
have his parents ever publicly spoken about his abusive behavior?
Not that I found.
Okay.
I could very easily see him lying to them about all of it, or I could see them making excuses.
It's kind of hard when you have full-on court dates
But he only spent 1 day in jail for all of them.
Yeah. But even still, you have multiple misdemeanors.
You would think. Your
parents should know about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I need to see if I can find more from his parents because that is interesting. The Flathead Reservation community from which Jermain was from rallied in support as well. They worked on bringing the case to the attention of the tribal leaders and also local media. They understood the importance of that. And it was working more than I've seen in a lot of others. And maybe the timing, I'm not sure, but her case did become a little bit more of a high-profile case. It shows this painful pattern of Indigenous women in Montana disproportionately going missing or being killed, often with scant public attention. And Jermain's family was determined that she would not be ignored. It is interesting because I feel like we hear that in a lot of them, and some are able to get it more out there, and some are not, even when they're all pushing so hard. Her Aunt Belinda told a reporter, missing and murdered Indigenous women isn't something that just started. It's happened since colonization. I will no longer be silent about it. And if I have to, I'll be Jermain's voice since she is not here to speak for herself. Now, once Detective Baker took over Jermain's case in late June, the investigation did begin in earnest, just a little bit behind. He was a veteran investigator with the Missoula police, and he quickly became deeply invested in finding Jermain. He wanted to bring justice for Jermain and hold accountable whoever's responsible. Over the next months and unfortunately years, Baker doggedly chased leads all over Montana and beyond. Even as time passed, he insisted the case never went cold. I've never worked a case like this before, he admitted, frustrated by the slow progress. He told reporters that he was determined to turn over every rock possible to get answers. They did get cell phone data, which we don't always see.
Mm-hmm.
On June 27th, detectives obtained records from her phone's activity and location on the night in question. What they discovered raised serious red flags about Michael's account of that night. According to the cell phone data, Jermain's phone was pinging off a cell tower near Ivaro Hill near 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. on June 16th. Ivaro Hill is a wooded, hilly area about 20 miles north of downtown Missoula.
So nowhere near the bar or where her boyfriend Jacob lived. Okay.
But right by where Michael lived.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. On a rural property owned by his family.
So not where he normally lived, but another property that they owned?
They might have owned two. I believe that that's where he was living all the time.
Okay.
At the time. Michael had to hurry and come up with a new story because now they could see that her phone traveled north and was active at Michael's house.
Yeah.
When confronted with this evidence, Michael changed his story. He told...
Again.
3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
He told Detective Baker that Jermain's phone was with him after he left her. Michael said that Jermain had accidentally left her cell phone in his truck when she got out and that he only discovered it later. Now,
Sure.
for it to ping at 2 a.m.
Right.
is him playing with it.
Yeah, like him being somebody's playing with it anyway.
Yep. He admitted that he did try to access the phone.
So can they confirm the last text, or have they come out and said when had she texted a friend for the last time, like when the phone last sent an actual message, not just him messing around with it?
I believe they know, but they haven't released it. He attempted to go through her cell phone. I'm sure he wanted to respond to her family and also read everything on it.
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to get into it. And that explains why when Jacob called at 12:55 a.m., somebody sent it straight to voicemail.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing if it's pinging by where he lives at 2 a.m., what happened between 12 and 2? Because he's not getting home. He said he dropped her off at around 1, but she would have still had her phone then. Her family does not believe that she forgot her phone. I feel like some people you can absolutely believe that about, and some people, they would never leave without that. And
no.
I don't think she could have been 100% certain that he couldn't get into it. She would have made sure that was on her. It
would have been in her back pocket. It would have been in her hand.
Her purse, anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would think with his violent tendencies, so here we have two choices. Either she put the phone away because he was known to destroy them, or she would keep it out as a way to be able to dial either 911 or text a friend or something for an emergency situation. So we have two different scenarios.
If she had it out, he easily
could have. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is his MO.
Right.
And people witnessed, seen it, known it. I mean, we know he's destroyed multiple phones at this point.
Exactly. And a lot of the reporting asks why he would keep it overnight rather than return it. But I think his whole story is BS. But he also had no way to return it to her if indeed she had been dropped off
at a random place that he had no access to.
Right. And no phone number to reach out to.
Right.
So that doesn't necessarily factor into my decision making here. Michael then told investigators that on June 18th, so 2 days after Jermain went missing, her whole family, she's already been reported to the tribal police. They're working on reporting her, contacting everyone she knows at this point while they get the report into Missoula police. He tells law enforcement that he destroyed Jermain's phone and threw it away. He, like I mentioned...
Which is also suspicious because if you're now concerned about the mother of your children, why would you destroy her phone?
Yeah. And he didn't just destroy it. He claimed that he drove the phone across the Idaho state line on his next drive.
Because that's not suspicious or anything.
Tossed it out the vehicle near mile marker 94 on Highway 12 in Idaho. Law enforcement jumped on it. They went and searched that whole stretch after learning that, but they never found the phone or any fragments of it. And to this day, the phone has never been recovered.
It's a lot of work just to get rid of a phone that
it is
supposedly isn't really a big deal to you.
Especially if it's somebody that you're co-parenting with.
Right.
That needs it
you would just
to communicate.
Exchange it at the next parental pickup.
Exactly. Detective Baker does not understand why he would get rid of the phone. And he says, if someone was around to give the phone back to him, why would you get rid of it? Doesn't make sense. However, it makes a lot of sense if one considers foul play. Destroying a victim's phone is a known tactic of abusers trying to prevent the victim from calling for help or to eliminate evidence of communication.
Yeah.
Jermain's family informed investigators that phone destruction was a habit of Michael's. It happened multiple times before. As Michael's inconsistencies mounted, detectives dug deeper into his background and his activities. On June 27th, the same day they analyzed the phone pings, officers from the Missoula County Sheriff's Office went out to the family property, Michael's family property at Avaro Hill to speak with Michael's relatives. Michael himself wasn't there, but they interviewed his mother, Jennifer. She told police that, to her knowledge, Jermain had never been out to their Avaro property.
See, that again feels like there was a different house somewhere else where the kids generally were that she would go to pick them up, and that's where that they all normally lived.
Yeah, that does feel like that.
But even more odd that the mom is at the spot where the phone is pinging off of, and again, not the normal residence.
Right. She's there when investigators show up to ask questions.
So this is beginning to feel like the parents are involved.
Right. Because saying that she'd never been there, has she never picked up the kids from there?
Right.
She's never been there.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And yet they've been dating, or they used to. I mean, they were together for many, many years.
8 years. Yeah. She also volunteered this interesting tidbit. Michael was still in love with Jermain and wanted to get back together with her. And that feels like she's trying to say he loves her and he would never hurt her because he wants to have a relationship with her. But to me, that feels obsessed and
very.
stalking.
And especially if he's not overreacting to her now being missing. That in itself is suspicious. You love this woman so much, you want to get back together with her, but you're not concerned that she's now missing.
And you
destroy her phone.
Exactly.
That you fully admit to law enforcement. I'm like, the math is not mathing.
The math is not mathing. And that statement also feels off because he had literally just been dumped by either his fiance or ex-girlfriend. Like, were his parents fully aware that he still wanted a relationship with Jermain while he was in at this point, long-term relationship with someone else?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Through the summer of 2018, Detective Baker and his colleagues pursued multiple theories. Early on, they considered whether Jermain might have been a victim of human trafficking. This came up because Missoula sits on the crossroads of Interstate 90 and other highways. It's a known corridor for illicit trafficking.
I feel like it's definitely something that has to be investigated.
Right.
Just to dot your I, cross your T's.
Yeah. The deputy county attorney, Brittany Williams, said that people have an idea that Montana is rural and underdeveloped and we don't have major crimes that occur here. But the fact of the matter is we have one of the largest interstates that runs through our state. There are people who can be swept away in an instant, which is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Detective Baker received an early tip that on the night Jermain disappeared, there were some people from out of state in Missoula who were, quote, trying to buy a girl. This lead, I think, also got them to dot that I and cross that T a little quicker. For a while, investigators chased down the trafficking angle. They coordinated with federal agents and traced any rumors of Jermain being taken against her will. However, as evidence accumulated, Baker eventually ruled out human trafficking in this case. The county deputy Williams said in 2024 that they have enough evidence throughout the investigation that lends itself to believe something else has happened to her.
Yeah.
But I don't think it took them 6 years to get to that point.
No.
All signs seem to point to that alley in Missoula with the person who left with Jermain. By the end of July 2018, the investigation zeroed in further on Michael's immediate vicinity. On August 2nd, 2018, the Missoula County Sheriff's Department applied for a search warrant targeting the DeFrance property on Avaro Hill. In the warrant affidavit, an officer stated that he had reason to believe that a crime, specifically naming unlawful restraint and possibly homicide, had been committed in connection with Jermain's disappearance. The warrant sought permission for an extensive search of the grounds, including the use of thermal imaging and video surveillance at any time of day or night. A judge approved the warrant, and not long after, teams quietly descended on the property to look for any sign of Jermain or evidence of foul play. They searched from the air with FLIR thermal cameras and on foot with cadaver dogs, going through the dense woods and the outbuildings, everything on the property. What they found, if anything, remains largely sealed in court records. The case is officially still an active investigation. Authorities have not publicly released or disclosed the full results of those searches. They have confirmed that Jermain was not found on the property and that as of yet, there isn't enough evidence to charge anyone in connection with her disappearance. That came out in 2018.
Okay.
During a follow-up search in October, and investigators did get multiple warrants. They got warrants to go through Michael's phone, to go through his devices. They got quite a few, and whatever the results are have never been released. But they were able to do a follow-up search in October, and investigators discovered a stash of firearms, which is significant because due to Michael's prior domestic violence convictions, he was prohibited by law from possessing guns. In Montana, a misdemeanor partner family assault conviction, like Michael's in 2013, carries a firearms ban, and federal law also bans domestic abusers from owning firearms. But on Michael's property, officers found multiple guns, including rifles and shotguns.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. But yeah, I wonder if that's just Montana.
Federal too, it says, but the rules are a little different because this is interesting. Montana's rule on this, or what they'll use to charge someone with partner family assaults and those different convictions, is better for the victim. It includes psychological abuse, not just physical.
Yeah, so it does, the Lautenberg Amendment does cover all states. So in all 50 states, if you have been convicted of even a misdemeanor for domestic violence, you are no longer allowed to own a weapon.
So, yes, but they did take him to court on this, on a weapons violation. And to them, that was good. We're at least able to work on building a case.
Well, because I'm sure that they're going to say, hey, tell us more.
Exactly.
In exchange for not having these charges or these charges dropped.
Yes.
Even though technically missing and murdered is worse.
100%, but yes. So in 2019, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, along with the FBI, built this case against Michael for being in possession of firearms that he was not allowed to have. He was indicted in federal court in 2021. Detective Baker noted that this federal firearms charge stemmed directly from the search for Jermain. While looking for a missing woman, they stumbled on another crime. He was arrested in 2021. In early 2023, he went to trial. A jury convicted him, and he was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison. But the charge was overthrown in December of 2024 because, like I said, Montana's domestic abuse laws were broader than the federal definition. So they include emotional harm as bodily harm, which is great. But in this case, it meant even though Michael had physically assaulted Jermain, because the law could hypothetically apply to non-physical abuse, they had to disregard the facts of his case and go by the statute's wording. One judge noted with dismay, quote, ironically, the results of this case would be different if Montana's laws were less protective of domestic violence victims.
Wow.
Isn't that horrifying?
Yeah.
It just makes you sick. Michael's conviction was vacated and he was freed. It's just so frustrating for Jermain's family, who, while they know this isn't binding Jermain, this is not justice for Jermain, they felt some relief at knowing
that he's off the streets.
Exactly. So it is a precedent that...
Yeah, that's totally setting precedent.
For right now.
Future domestic abusers.
In Montana to have guns. Exactly. It would be great if federally they all followed Montana's lead.
Yeah.
Throughout 2019 and 2020 and beyond, Detective Baker continued to work on the case largely behind the scenes. Many of the investigative files, the search warrants, the interviews, the forensic reports have been sealed by the court since it is active. Baker has cautiously guarded specifics to make sure he doesn't compromise an eventual prosecution.
Yeah.
But he has given some reassurances to the family, emphasizing repeatedly that Jermain's case is nowhere near close to a cold case.
Yeah.
They're still following up on leads. New searches are executed when possible, and he does chase down every tip that comes in. Michael has never been cleared as a potential suspect, even though publicly he's not called one. In Baker's view, Jermain was the victim of a criminal act, not an accident or a voluntary disappearance. And he has said he is confident that he has identified the individual or individuals responsible, which is a strong statement.
Yeah, no, I'm like, that's very telling.
It very much shows that he believes he knows who harmed Jermain, but waiting for the evidence to prove it.
Yeah.
They are now officially investigating Jermain's case as a likely homicide, even though she still has not been found. Effectively, at this point, they're working on it as a no-body homicide, but they are still trying to find her.
Right.
Her family has worked tirelessly behind the scenes as well. In October of 2018, her family, with support of their tribe, put up a billboard along Highway 93, which is the main route into Missoula. The billboard features Jermain's beautiful face and a simple plea for information. It's hard to miss. And Detective Baker admitted that seeing that billboard frustrates him, knowing the case remains unsolved despite all the efforts. He did have them put up his personal number on the billboard and also on the missing person flyers. I am really happy that
he's taken such a
great
personal vested interest in this specific case.
Exactly. Every year on June 16th, Jermain's family holds gatherings or prayer vigils to honor her and call for justice. They celebrate her would-be birthdays. She would have turned 30 in 2025, and she's included in cultural ceremonies, even as they acknowledge she's likely no longer alive. They do really emphasize how important it is to them to bring Jermain home and have her rest with their family.
Right. Method.
Yeah. They want to lay Jermain's spirit to rest in their ancestral graveyard, to have a place to visit and to honor her. And until that day comes, they've said that they feel they cannot heal from this. Her aunt, Valinda, has been the family's rock and the most vocal advocate. She has spent countless days organizing search parties, meeting with detectives. She is the official go-to spokesperson in the media for Jermain's case. Valinda refuses to let Jermain's name fade and has said she will never stop looking for her. She also talks about how many other families she's met that have had a loved one disappear. She says to them specifically, I want other families to know that it's okay to keep pushing and it's okay to keep their name out there. We have to fight for justice for our loved ones.
Cold Justice did this show in November.
Oh, really?
I literally watched the episode. I'm sitting here like, some of this feels really familiar. And I just started Googling, and sure enough, I'm like, that would be why, because I just watched the episode. So yeah, I watched, they interviewed her aunt, who's leading the charge.
Yes.
And then I think a cousin, and I'm trying to remember who, there was like 3 of her relatives that interviewed with Cold Justice.
Okay.
Like the lawyer.
I try not to watch the things before.
Yeah.
But I will go watch it as soon as we're done.
I want to say, I believe they also believe that it's him, but there's still not quite enough to be able to get a district attorney to formally charge him.
He's literally still not even considered a suspect formally.
Which is a load of crap, but
100%.
Yeah. Kelly was like, when they went back to tell the family, she was like crying at the end. I do remember this show because they literally met like out at a park on a park bench, trying to remember if they tried to talk to him in the show, because they always attempt to talk to their suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And either they couldn't find him or he would not. Yeah. Like even to where they went to the house where he was supposedly living at and knocked on the door and nobody came to the door. So they had to, but I honestly cannot remember. But I do remember that episode because one, we had just started Vanished Voices. And then, but two, because the ending was Kelly was pissed that they weren't able to get a district attorney to charge him.
Yeah. It's like you have all the circumstantial.
Mm-hmm. Have they released any conversation that they've had with him, or is that all being held back? Because I want to know. Now I forgot what I was thinking. I've been holding off on it. And now I forgot since I just found that.
They got his version of events.
They did talk to some of the friends that were outside the bar.
Yeah.
They show that on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But none of the friends really knew what the plans were afterwards, just that they were leaving together. I get it. You're trying to keep the peace. Like, I fully understand that. And I guess if you're thinking maybe since even though the fiance and him have now broken up.
She might not have known that.
Right. But you're thinking, I'm surprised they still want to spend as much time together, even though it is in the But again, everything is being done for the kids.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell that everything is forefront with the kids in mind. And let me make sure. And I'm still floored at this custody agreement.
Oh, me too. I was like, jaw on the floor.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Especially when that's his job. And again,
maybe it wasn't the fall before.
Yeah. But even still, like and you're, again, if you didn't have a lawyer the first time, you're not going to have money to go back to court, even to adjust the parenting schedule. And clearly the parents are stepping up.
Yeah. As of this recording, Jermain Charlo's fate is still unknown to the public. Her family sadly accepts that she likely won't be found alive, but they are resolute in their mission to bring her home someday and to see justice served. Jermain's story has illuminated the experiences of so many others. Over 7 years have passed since that June night, but the spark she left in the world will not be extinguished. She has 2 young sons who are growing up, surrounded by relatives who keep their mother's memory alive.
So that's good. It does sound like they do have a relationship with her family.
Yes. For now, the voices of those who love Jermain refuse to be silenced. We're not going to stop looking for our people. We're not, said one of Jermain's close family friends. Our lives matter. In the search for Jermain, as in so many searches for missing Indigenous women, hope is tempered by heartbreak, but it is hope nonetheless. Jermain's voice may be vanished, but through the dedication of her family and community, it continues to echo, demanding to be heard. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jermain Charlo, please contact Detective Guy Baker of the Missoula Police Department at 406-552-6284. Any tip could be the one that brings Jermain home and brings justice for her family. Even if you don't have information, share Jermain's story. Keep her name in the forefront. Learn more about her story and tell it. The more people who know about Jermain, the better chance of finding someone who knows something and can give police the tip that they've been needing.
That's it for today's episode of Vanished Voices. Thank you for listening and helping us shine a light on stories that deserve to be heard. To dive deeper into the sources and research we used, visit our blog via our website at vanishedvoicespodcast.com. Let's stay connected. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Vanished Voices Pod. If you found this episode meaningful, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Your support helps keep these stories in the public eye and honors those who can no longer speak for themselves. And as always, refuse to let these voices vanish.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.